Welcome to session number 5 of 8 sessions of the Citizens Leadership Institute. Believe it or not, we're in the second half already. Not much more to go. It's almost polo shirt size time. I'm going to send you all a little note and ask for your polo shirt size preference, because if you do complete CLI, you do get a fabulous polo shirt with the nice little logo on it. I'll fashion it for you the next time. Okay, there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention to you all, which is we do have a few folks online, so as I always remind my presenters and all of you out there as well, people who are listening in online cannot hear you, so I always ask our presenters to repeat the question, or if I can get up to you with the microphone, I will get up to you with the microphone so you can hear. That's the other reason why I asked everyone to put a name tag so our presenters can call on you. It's a little bit easier sometimes to do it that way. Again, in previous incarnations of CLI, we sit in a conference room around a table where we can put name tags and people can kind of interact a little bit. This is a little bit different dynamic, so it is a little bit of a challenge in some ways. What I have handed out to you, in addition to a name tag this evening, is a couple of things that I meant to give you right at the beginning of our class, which was the mission and vision statements for the city. You could find those, of course, online, but it's nice to have that maybe to open your binder. Also, a organizational chart of the city that, again, was probably referred to by the city manager right in our very first night. So just some real general stuff. I also have put in the PowerPoint from the finance presentation of 2 weeks ago. You can look at that and refer back from our previous session. I have also put in one of the presentations from tonight. You'll get the other ones next time. But my good friend, Mr. Anglin, in the back there, sent me his presentation earlier today, so I was able to print that out, so you'll be able to follow along on that. And then the last presentation I sent to you is actually the revenue development presentation that I alluded to 2 weeks ago. Fox Young, who handles all of our grant writing and corporate sponsorships and nonprofit arms of the city, is going to come and see us in 2 weeks and do sort of an abbreviated version of his presentation, but now you have his PowerPoint as well, so you're a little bit ahead of everybody else. Okay. That said, everybody comfortable? Don't forget bathrooms on my right, on your left. As always, if you do need to take a phone call or anything else, please do so. I'm going to close the door to the lobby, so you can do that back there. And we'll try to take at least a short break in between. We have 3 presentations tonight. We're going to start with streets, public works, and then we're going to do water, and then we're going to do sewer, and it's a roads and utilities kind of night. But we start with one of the most important parts of any municipal government, because we all have to ride on something to get to work, whether we work at the city or we work anywhere else in the city. And we're really lucky to have this gentleman running our Public Works Department, because he comes to us with 3 decades worth of experience, and he's been here now for a few years, but he came to us from the state of South Dakota, where he made quite the mark on that state. Spent 19 years in Huron, 15 as a city engineer, and then 4 as a city engineer and the Public Works Director. He also worked for the state transportation department in the state of South Dakota, and he's not a jackrabbit, and what's the other South Dakota?
Oh, coyotes?
Coyotes, that's right. He went to the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology.
The Hard Rockers.
The Hard Rockers, thank you very much. And he holds engineering licenses both in Arizona as well as South Dakota. And like I said, he joined us a little over 4 years ago, right? 2017?
Be 5 in July.
5 in July, can you imagine that? And he is the director of our Public Works Department. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Weaver.
Jeez, that was a nice introduction. All right. I spelled my name correctly. just in case you're wondering. There's no A in it. Public Works, the divisions are administration, which is basically me, Shane, he's his Public Works manager, also runs the streets department, and then our management analyst, and then engineering has 3 people, streets 14. I believe that might be closer to 16 now, buildings 3, and fleet 4. Get into a little more. So engineering, and right now our city engineer is taking a job in the private sector, so we'll get that job up posted, probably take about 6 months before we have anybody, so I will be acting in that capacity for a little while. But they're in charge of some of the design we do in-house. We consult a bunch of it out, so not a lot done in-house anymore. The project management, so if they're doing a street project that's ADOT funded or MAG or whatever, we've got somebody out on the road watching it, making sure it's getting done right, keeping track of things, and doing a final report on it. Same with the construction inspection, and right now we're doing plan reviews like nobody's business. So with the new development down south, it's pretty continual. They move fast, so I'm busy, Mike's busy, Darren in the back's busy, everybody's busy. Flood management, I'll learn more over the course of the next 6 months, but the city engineer is also the floodplain administrator. So when there's a floodplain question, issue, whatever, he has to take care of that. Been talking to him over the course of the last couple of weeks about what all that involves, what are the rules and that, so I'm getting a quick introduction to floodplain management. Grants, we get one of the gals down in our office, one of the project engineers, Raquel, does our grant applications, and she's must be darn good at it because we get a ton of money each year for projects. We plan them out, hopefully we'll get them, and it seems like we get every one we try to get. So it's been good, and we'll see those projects, we'll show a couple of them up here. So, street department, just quick little glance of what all they do. Probably aware of most of them. We do some in-house stuff, and you've probably seen them around now, crack sealing, but and we'll start a chip seal project here shortly. Some stats. We like stats. 200 miles of paved streets. 6,000 signs. I'd like to get that down to about 2 if we could, but. And 114 vehicles, and I think that number is probably closer to 150, and the equipment's still in the 76 range. 1,300 streetlights. So we've got 2 guys that do the streetlight repairs and work on the signals. And we're probably a bit behind on that, but it's getting better. We're going with the LED retrofits, so hopefully we'll get caught up here in the next year or 2. Fleet is also housed in Public Works, so they do all our preventive maintenance for all of our vehicles. They do work on some of the heavy equipment when they can do it. And police, basically there's a pretty good fleet of police cars, so that keeps them pretty busy. Oh, they also, one of the processes we're doing right now is we have detectives, and as they get vehicles, we're shoving them through the carpool process first, because they put so many miles on vehicles that we want to run some of the warranty for a bit. So if Mike needs a car up here at City Hall, or city manager needs a car, we keep those cars new, run them for a year, and then move them to the detectives, then bring a new batch in, run them here, and then push them through. And that's worked very well, actually. Building maintenance, we have 3 guys, and they're the best. I probably get compliment from them. Somebody will email me probably once a week. And I don't know if you're in government work at all, but getting a compliment, that's like usually once every couple years you get a compliment. So for some reason, these guys are so nice, I get one about every other week or every week. So recent projects. These are old pictures, so I apologize. If you've ever been by 2nd and Tomahawk over by Weaver's Needle, the guys, our crew dug out that area and some of their handiwork with, we tried out some rock and wire baskets or gabions in that area to protect the edges. And they did a nice job on that. Anyway, it's, they call it a detention pond, but it's not really big enough to be a detention pond. So it slows the water down enough, drops the sediment out, and it moves on its way. And it's, in the past, those pipes used to all fill up with sediment, and they'd fill up with sediment, and then it would go over the road, it'd go in Weaver's Needle, it'd go down the road. Now at least we get the capacity, the full capacity of the pipes through there. So it's been a good project, but basically it's a sediment basin. As far as grants go, one of the projects we did a couple years ago, but on Winchester north of Southern up to 16th, widen that, put curb in, get a before on the bottom and an after picture there, but that was grant money. Down on Baseline, probably about a year ago, we did the section in front of our office, basically. Our office is down on Baseline, kind of down by the emissions testing. We did from Winchester over to Tomahawk, tore up all the subgrade, added some cement to the base, rolled it, compacted it, and then put new asphalt on and added bike lanes. We also did the same thing west of Ironwood over to just about Meridian. The signal on Meridian and Baseline that's new is one of our projects too that we co-opt with McDOT and Pinal County on. Delaware Ditch, so this is probably a year and a half ago or so, just north of Southern. And as you can see, we're getting close to losing the wall to the development to the west. So we went in and lined that channel. This was the first section we did, and I couldn't get the picture to come up, but we did finish it down around the corner this past year. And to an engineer, it looks great. I don't know what everybody else thinks about it, but it's a big hunk of concrete out there, and it will get tested, and it should work fine. Apache Trail, we're partnering with Park and Rec. We'll come in one year, get the curb done, which this would kind of show, and get some, and then later on we'll go in, fill it with dirt, cut a channel out, and then Park and Rec will come in, shape everything, put the landscaping in, and the DG, and then the rock for the channel. And we do a couple sections a year and hope to hopefully be done, probably about 4 more years will be done. But it looks great. I mean, it's a big improvement to what it was before, and we're kind of hoping it has that, well, you know, in some neighborhoods when you put when you reside your house, well, down here you don't reside house, you recoat them or whatever, or you put a new driveway in, or you do some landscaping, sometimes that kind of trickle effects out. So we're kind of hoping that once they see how nice this looks, we'll see maybe some changes on some other frontages and get a little trickle effect. Fiscal year 23 projects. So the project I showed you on Baseline where we redid the subgrade, put the cement base in, we'll do that up on Lost Dutchman from Idaho to Tomahawk. We did a little stretch from Tomahawk to 88 last year, but we'll start adding bike lanes as we go west, and we'll work our way west 1 mile a year. Idaho Superstition to Lost Dutchman. We'll go in and add some curb. The road's in terrible shape, so we'll probably go in and redo the existing asphalt first. And this project that we're doing just kind of widens things, adds some curb here and there, and gets it a little more in order. But that'll look nice. When we do that too, we'll overlay from Superstition down to North Apache Trail, that few blocks there by the county offices. And then we'll add bike lanes, I believe, on the stretch from Lost Dutchman up to McKellips. Old West Highway, Idaho to Goldfield. We'll add some curb, we'll add some, I think we'll have walking paths from basically Idaho to Goldfield out there to the new development. Winchester Southern to 29th. we're going to start design on that, as well as Delaware from Broadway to 16th. Delaware, Broadway to 16th, that stretch, if you drive it, it's really nice on the east side of the road. On the west side of the road, it just kind of drops off the edge of the road. So we'll be adding pipe in that area and then fill that ditch in, put some curb in, put some sidewalk in, and dress that up a little bit and get some safety back to that area. So the design process is just getting going on both of those, and probably 2 years down the line we'll get going on projects. Virginia Scenic and Pinion, we have a couple stretches over there without curb, just west of Delaware, so we're going to get those done this next fiscal year. One of the projects in question, storm sewer on Broadway. We need to get Broadway resurfaced. So, and we've got two 54-inch pipes in there that we need to extend down Ocotillo. It's only about probably 450 feet. So we'll try to get that done this year if all the money works out like it should. But that'll kind of be the project that slides if prices come in higher than we think for all the other projects. Detention. The roundabout right over here, we're going to put in a detention pond, and that work will start this year. We're partnering with the county. That drainage works its way over by Dick's Dirtwater there, and then travels down through the plaza and San Marcos and down into Palm Wash. So we're hoping to cut that flow down enough to causes us some issues down the line. So anyway, we're going to cut the flow down, hopefully get rid of some of the sediment. And then our dream job here, we're gonna do the design on it, see what the cost is, but if you're on Goldfield and you go all the way up to Lost Dutchman, Weeks Wash is the big wash. In a 100-year flood, that's like, I'm going to say 6,500 CFS. That's just a ton of water comes across Lost Dutchman and then flows through that eastern part of the city. We want to do a regional detention basin up there to try to cut that flow maybe from, we'll see what they come up with. The dream would be to get it down to around the 1,500 CFS. If we can hold enough water, and that basin I showed you earlier in the picture, that culvert will handle about 1,500. So we'd like to get it down into a manageable situation. Lots of things to think about with that, you know, so it's a big project, but I don't know how much it'll cost. We're guessing 5 to 10 will get us partway through it. Flood cleanup, I think that's Cortez and TP, but just some of if we get a good flood, it's probably 3 months to get everything picked up. And that's a good one, so that'd be a good 3 month. We just finished our HHW. This is not the right date, but we did this last weekend. I believe 397 people came through. And then they'll get enough. You're going to talk about South, aren't you? Somebody will? But anyway, the new development down south. Lots of work on that. That's the location of it, and I'll let these other guys hammer on that a bit. But I'm quick to Jeff.
Mike or Mr. Weaver, well, first off, I thought you did a good job, so I'll give you a compliment there.
Thank you.
My question on these intersections, are there any, I don't think it's on, are there any live stream cameras on these major intersections?
Are there any live stream cameras on any intersections? There are cameras on, I'm gonna guess at this, but I think most of our main ones, probably around 13 intersections, have cameras on them. The cameras, however, do not record. So, and we're not allowed to let them record, evidently, so.
Is that a local law, or?
I don't know what the explanation is, other than people are uncomfortable with that, so we make sure we let them know that we don't do that. What we do with them, though, it gives us the ability to, if there is a traffic problem out there, if there's something we want to look at, we don't have to drive out to the intersection to look at it. We can sit at the office and study it. and we can pan it around and look at the intersection, how it reacts at certain times of the day, so. But just getting the point across that they don't record.
Thank you.
Yep.
In Washington State, we didn't record because up there was retention issues, because it's all disclosable at that point. You have to retain it, you have to disclose it, and it's just a massive problem for recording.
Thank you. All right, so it's just a lot of issues that you can get away with. If you don't record it, there's just a lot of things you'd have to worry about.
Or do something, but yeah,
Yep.
just generally daily, it's massive.
Yes,
My ears pricked up when you said bicycle lanes. I'm a bicyclist.
okay.
And I live off of Ironwood. Is there a plan to get bicycle lanes along just the main north-south, east-west routes in town, other than like, the trail? There's a little bit down baseline, but it's not safe to get down the baseline.
Right.
It's not safe to go along Southern in spots. It's really not safe to go along Broadway in spots. And I'm wondering if there's a plan to eventually get on just the main routes, get bicycle lanes on this.
So the question is if there's a plan to get the bicycle routes in, do we have a plan actually for them, connectivity and all that? We do, 3 years ago, did an active transportation plan that laid out where the bike lane should be. It also laid out the cross-section of that road. And so whenever we do a new road, we are following that active transportation plan. So if you're down on baseline from Ironwood to Idaho, we did that prior to the plan.
It's beautiful right there.
So we gotta get that one widened yet. But and the Lost Dutchman thing, I think is going to be a beautiful ride up there, heading right towards the mountains. But that is our plan, and we'll have all through the new development. Also, there'll be bicycle lanes on anything that's a collector or an arterial.
That stretch right there that you're talking about, Lost Dutchman, is one of the most photographed places within the city. And if you are watching right now, I know because I watch Suns games. So I know if you watch basketball and probably other channels as well, the Arizona Lottery actually has an ad running where the last 10 seconds are right along Lost Dutchman from Idaho up to Tomahawk. It's just a convertible car going towards the mountain. And of course, I set that up back in November, so that's why it's running now.
Nice.
Kind of cool. More questions? I have the microphone working now,
All right.
so you can ask.
But if it's something too, I can get Al a copy of the kind of the layout for the city that we're going to work. You know, it's a 20-year plan, but at least it shows what we're looking at. All right.
Okay.
Hi, I have a question. The planning process, and I know that the planning process generally takes more years in advance for you to plan and come up with the grant funding and that. But overall, for like weeks wash, from the beginning of the thought and the design all the way through the planning process and completion, how long do you think that would take?
Well, there's a funding source that we're hoping to use, and I believe we need to have the money obligated by, and I'm guessing here, so don't hold me to it, I think by the end of '25 we have to have it obligated. So if all goes well, you know, it's possible that in '26 we could be moving dirt. And that would be phenomenal, actually. But, you know, there's, how much, am I done now, Al, time-wise, or can I go to? Okay. So one of the things to think about on this, you don't think about these huge detention ponds, is it comes out of the mountains and how much sediment it carries. We want an area to pull the sediment out of the basin and stockpile it so we can haul it out later. And the part you don't think about is that they were telling us is that you have to actually put a little bit more in too. So we'll have to figure out areas to place sediment along Weeks Wash in the future, because it'll just scour it all. And typically it comes down out of there and it's moving fast, and it moves all the sediment with, and at the end as it slows down, then it drops all the sediment back. If you take all that source away, then it just remove stuff. It doesn't drop anything. So, and the guys we're talking to, I thought it was didn't make a lot of sense to me, but he mentioned areas that we would have problems with our little pond that we did, and he's spot on. He's never seen it before, but he said, I'd imagine you'd have problems here, and I imagine you'd have problems here, and we do. So we'll have to study how to put sediment back in after we get going. Big deal for a flatlander from South Dakota.
Little did you know we were going to end up in a city that was built all throughout washes.
Right.
And I've got to think that is literally one of the biggest challenges that this city has faced over the years in its evolution is the geography, the topography, because you have washes that go through the city, you have all kinds of stuff, and people. I'm sure there's a couple of you who literally live with something that runs through your yard, and that is one of the things that we deal with on a daily basis, unfortunately.
When I moved out here, I thought, will I ever get to see the wall of water come down? Not the wall, how it gets started. No water in front of it. And day 9 of work. Here it comes. And it was so bad that day, and I'd been here 9 days, and I was like, I got to get back to office and have somebody else drive me because they're going to have to come rescue the public works director. Yeah.
That would have looked bad, right?
It's going to look really bad. Yeah, it's going to look really bad.
But we've been lucky. We haven't really had anything like that since probably 2019, late 2019. We've had a couple of big storms, but we've weathered them.
Doozies.
Oh, yeah, no pun intended. Okay, other questions? Mike Weaver, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
You guys want to keep going? All right. Thank you, Michael. Okay. Up next is a guy who's all washed up. No, I'm just kidding. Just an old water joke. My father worked for the city of Tucson Water Department for 35 years. So this is an area near and dear to my heart because I probably wouldn't have ended up in municipal government if it hadn't been for my dad. This gentleman, though, who is ready to go here, is a 20-year veteran now. Is that right? Wow. Of course, he started when he was 12. A 20-year veteran of water engineering and management. He took over, he was the engineer and superintendent of the water district for 6 years before he took over as director 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, 2019. He also served 12 years for Arizona Water Company, which he will explain, I'm sure. Also serves the city of Apache Junction, and that's always an interesting time. So he does that. Holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Evansville in, everybody? Indiana, thank you, Michael. Indiana. Several additional training certifications over the last several years. He is a registered professional engineer, certified as a Grade 4 distribution and water treatment plant operator by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and that's very important since we have a water treatment plant. He also has a certificate of a certified public manager from Arizona State University, and like I said, he has been our director now since 2019, and we're very lucky to have him at this time because there may not be a more important part of the growth of any area in Arizona than to have to deal with H2O. So, ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Water District for Apache Junction, Mr. Michael Loggins.
Thank you, Al. Got a brief presentation. I'll go through it. Save your questions in the end or ask me during it. It's open. I know there'll be quite a few questions in the end, but just to start out, quick outline, who we are, where we're going, what are the water laws of the West, well, the water cycle, water is everything, water resources, and water quality in the end. So you guys can answer some questions for people after this. So our mission, to provide residents, visitors, community organizations, and businesses with the finest municipal water service. Our vision, to be recognized as an invaluable resource providing core service for our community while promoting growth and ensuring Apache Junction's sustainability and future growth. And as Al was saying, you'll learn a little bit more about water and where we're at today and how we can serve it for the future development we have to the south. So I have some 10 water laws of the West. These are a little interesting. So water runs downhill. It's Newton's third law. But if you live in Los Angeles, it runs uphill to money. So Colorado River, as you guys are aware, comes from the northern part of Arizona, runs across our western border. Back in the day, Metro Water District in California, the LA area, Beverly Hills, they created a pact to run aqueduct system over there. So they have senior rights to the Colorado River. So as the water's declining as it is today, they will not run out of water first because they have senior priority rights to that river compared to Arizona, because they made us agree back in the day when we built our aqueduct system that they would have that. So they would allow us to build that. This is a kind of just a geographic picture of our system here. Let me see if I can get a pointer. So this is the Central Arizona project that was built back in the late 80s. As you can see here, we're up at Lake Havasu. It's the first pumping station. And we come through Wickenburg, Buckeye, all the way up through northern Phoenix, Glendale. And right in this area is about Apache Junction here in our surface water plant. And then this aqueduct system goes all the way to Tucson. It serves about 50% of the communities, or 50% of the water in the state, and the SRP services the other water and provides that to these communities. So law of supply and creating demand. If you don't have water, you won't need it. He who brings water brings people. So this was big for our board, going out and leasing additional water supplies, looking for additional water supplies for future development. So we've actually went out and have that water available for people, and they're finally coming now that we have state land sales going on. So working through that process. The law of I got it first. So again, prior appropriations was with California. They were first in to get the water from the Colorado River, so they get the senior rights. The law of beneficial use. To have a water right, you must have beneficial use. Environmentalists have gained recognition in stream for beneficial uses. So in San Joaquin Delta, they have fish there. It was a beneficial use to have all these fish available and how they survived originally, so beneficial use for the water supply there. The law of worthless land. Land is worthless without water rights. Law of expropriation, acquiring rights to water by buying cheap land. So this is something similar to what is going on. We had an example here of with the Saudi Arabia came over here, purchased 15 square miles. Well, under that land came with pumping rights. It was cheaper for them to purchase that than actually produce alfalfa that they can't produce themselves over there. So they came over and purchased this down in the Casa Grande area. They package up all their alfalfa for all their horses and supplies, and then they ship it overseas because it's cheaper to do that than their water supplies in Saudi Arabia. The other one just recently happened, Queen Creek. They purchased land over on the Colorado River that came with water rights. So that's how they acquired new additional water rights from the Colorado River. So again, going out and purchasing those, buying it cheap land just for the water rights. Luckily, Arizona Department of Water Resources stepped in and said you can't take all the water, so they saved some for that land so that doesn't just become desert in the future, but they were able to get some of it. Law of the price is right. No water shortage, the price is right. So roughly about 10 years ago, we leased land from the Gila Indian River community. And at the point in time, it was about $3,000 an acre foot. Today, Queen Creek, or I guess it was a couple years ago, purchased their water supplies at $10,000 acre foot. We were looking at additional water supplies currently, it's up to $24,000 an acre foot. And that's roughly in the last 10 years, and how it's doubled out there, or almost tenfold. The law of water and monopoly. Regional agencies build vast canal systems to bring water. Law of vanishing civilizations, the Hohokam law of water and gravity. There's no rain, there's no water to flow downhill. So as we've been in drought here the last few years, or over the last probably 20 years, the water supplies have dwindled, and we'll get a little bit more into that as the Colorado River and the supplies have lowered and what tiers we're at and water reductions that we'll have. But there's no water to flow downhill at this point in time, so we're slowly using those supplies that we have behind dams that we've built. So the water cycle, we do this for all the fourth graders here in Apache Junction. We go through the whole water cycle where we talk about how the clouds bring in the rain and the snow, provide surface to the surface water and runoff to lakes, and then condensation, and we go through the whole water cycle with them to train so people understand where our water's coming from today, where it came from 100 years ago, and where we're going into in the future. So water globally. Roughly 1/3 of the water's population now lives in water-stressed areas. As global warming happens, more people will be in that situation. Nearly 1 billion people still live without access to safe drinking water. So as most people here in Arizona, they love just turning on their tap and water comes out. If you're in, I believe, South America is where our city manager went down into his mission. They didn't have running water. They had to boil it every night. It wasn't something that just came out of the tap. So he's learned how third world countries actually handle their water compared to how we do it here in the US. So I'm going to skip through some of these things. So in South Africa, they had a day zero where they were going to run out of water. So they actually started conserving water. So they thought they'd be run out of water by 2017. So each individual in the village was only allowed to use 13 gallons per day. Does anybody know how much water one person in Apache Junction uses per day? Any guesses? So roughly we're at about 95 gallons per day per person. So that's not even a household, that's just per person. So you can see at 13 gallons a day, that's not that much water that we use. And we're one of the lower communities in the state of Arizona. A lot of others are around 120 to 150 gallons per day. But we do not have a lot of the landscaping and other things that most other cities have. So with that conservation, they were able to push day zero to later that year. Rains helped in 2018. So that kind of gives you what globally. Now we're starting to talk a little bit about regionally where we're at. So climate change is bringing big changes to Lake Mead, which has been lowering over the past couple of years, which then goes to Lake Powell, is upstream from there, and Lake Havasu downstream from there. So Lake Mead has to reach a certain point where we actually start hitting reductions. A few years back, they said a 50% chance that Lake Mead would be dry by 2021. We're past that. We've been doing a lot of water conservation here in Arizona. What happened back in the day in Phoenix, like I was saying earlier, the gallons per capita used to be 150. Obviously, the population has grown. Their gallons per capita went down, and they're actually using almost the same amount of water they did 50 years ago with 2 million less people. So they're actually conserving that water. If you go down to the old downtown Phoenix areas, there's a lot of grass and irrigation they still have down there. It's a lot of green areas. The new areas is more like Apache Junction, where it's all desert landscaping and different things like that. So I'm going to skip through some of these for you guys to speed this along. So here's a little graphic you guys may get asked about. So we have the upper basin states, which is Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. And most of our water comes from the Colorado River that starts in the Rocky Mountains up there. The lower basin states here, is in the orange, is all the Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and California, and Mexico. So we provide water to all those. So a little background, Al said I worked for Arizona Water Company for 12 years, and then I came here to the Water District. So currently we serve about 1/3 of the city. So it's kind of unique. They're a private utility. They serve 2/3 of the city, around the city and the county areas, and all the way out to Gold Canyon. We service about 1/3 of the city, mostly everything east of Idaho and south of Old West Highway. And then all the land to the south that's starting the development down there will be serving that area also. So we roughly have about 16,000 customers today. And we roughly have about 1,641 acre feet that we service to those customers. So an acre foot of water is roughly about 325,000 gallons of water. So if you can picture 1 foot deep over an acre of land, that's about an acre foot of water. You can serve roughly about 3 to 4 families off that 1 acre of land. Currently, we're about 1.8 million gallons a day that we service from our production that we have out there between surface water and well water. Our system capacity for wells, we have 1.73 million gallons a day for wells. We also have a Mesa interconnect. So back when I started here in 2012, we were 100% well water at that point in time. The council decided in 2015 that we'd decide our own destiny, and we went out and built our first ever surface water treatment plant here in Apache Junction. It's right along the CAP canal just south of Baseline on Ironwood. And then that's the 2 million gallons a day we can do today. Before that, we were also we'd deliver raw water to the city of Mesa. They would treat it and then deliver it to us in an interconnect that we have with them. This is just in general what one of our well sites look like here. We roughly today is about 10% of our system's production. And the only reason why we typically run our wells is to make sure they're up and operational. We try base loading our whole system with our surface water plant because it's a renewable resource rather than using our underground sources. We've seen this a little bit earlier. This is the Colorado River picture again. So when they divided up to each city back in the day and districts, we received 2,919 acre feet of water for the service area that we had at that point in time. Over time, we went out and leased 1,000 acre feet from GRIC for the next 100 years. And then also some non-Indian agricultural water came available, and they allocated out to different cities based on needs, and we received 817 acre feet of that water. So we're slowly building up our portfolio at this time. So this is our portfolio here. Kind of going through it again. The CAP makes up that 2,919 acre feet is about 40% of our allocation. We have groundwater capacity, roughly 32%, which is 2,372 acre feet. And we have our long-term storage credits. So long-term storage credits can either be made up of CAP water that we're not using, and we'll store it with groundwater savings facilities. So instead of a farm pumping wells, we'll deliver that surface water to them. They'll use that to water their crops, and then we get credits for them not pumping that water that we could save and use later to pump out of the ground. Then we have our GRIC lease that we have there, which is about 1,000 acre feet, and our non-Indian agricultural water that we also purchased. So we have 2 booster pump stations, roughly one on 16th Avenue west of Idaho, and then one down on Baseline. So it's 4 million gallons of storage and 4 million gallons a day that we can produce in booster pump capacity. We have our Mesa interconnect. This is at Baseline in Signal Butte that we can do 2.5 million gallons per day if we needed to. Again, this now is just an emergency interconnect that we use only in case of emergencies. This was our superstition area water plant that we built back in 2015. When we built it then, we were using about 1.2 million gallons a day. Since all the developments have been happening slowly, we're up to about 1.8 million gallons per day that we can produce from that plant. So sustainability. So sustainability and growth, it was a big thing for us, as I talked about a little earlier. We recharge our CAP water. So we have roughly about 3,900 acre feet of water. Currently, our customers for domestic water use do about 1,600 acre feet of that water. So we roughly have about 2,000 acre feet available to us that we put into the ground. So we're constantly recharging water to save that for another rainy day so that we can use it at that point in time. We've acquired new leases. We're upgrading our infrastructure. We eventually will expand our surface area treatment plant, and we'll discuss that a little bit with state land here in a little bit. And then eventually we're going to talk about water reuse here in Apache Junction. As the price of water keeps growing, reuse is better known for a lot of people as toilet to tap, where we have this commodity of water. Instead of putting it back in the ground, we reuse it, we put it back through our treatment process and add additional treatment processes to it, and then bring it back to our customers. Seems kind of gross here in Arizona because all of our lakes and washes don't run water. But if you're back from the Midwest, what do you think happens with your water up there? They send it to people, they treat it, and they put it back in the river, and there's always somebody downstream from you. So they say in Louisiana, if you drink the water down there, it's already been through 18 people before you start drinking it. So that's how many people on the Mississippi River that goes through. So it happens all over, just people don't realize it because it's going back into a river, not just into a wash or going directly into a plant. So water quality here in Apache Junction, all of our water is safe to drink. We go through different requirements to test everything. We have MCLs. Our water testing program here, these are all a list of all the constituents that we have to test for. So over 106 different types of samples that we take yearly. Here's a list of some of them. Back T samples, 130 we take a year, 180 on our SOCs, our synthetic organic compounds, arsenic tests, disinfection byproducts, lead and copper, pH and chlorine residuals daily. So over 360, and then at the bottom of field test we take over 2,000. So on a daily basis we're out there testing the water to make sure it's correct for all of our customers. So just a little AJ average rainfall is 9 inches per year. Evaporation for a pool, our rate is 94 inches per year. So here in Apache Junction, a 16,000 gallon pool evaporates 10,000 gallons each year. So here's a little effect of drought. As you can see in these pictures, there was a nice big lake, had boats all over it, and as we slowly get through the drought, this is where we're going. This is kind of where Lake Mead's headed at this point in time. So again, nice shiny lake down to basically a mud and a pond. Challenges are climate change, infrastructure, regulatory, and budget. Obviously, as water gets more scarce, the more money it's going to cost us to build this infrastructure, purchase new additional supplies, and deliver it to our customers. So every drop there ever will be is already here, so please use it wisely. So we're working on several different projects here in Apache Junction. We present it to our board. Obviously, we have some Colorado River water right now. SRP is working on we're calling it one of the future for Arizona projects. The Verde system is not as big as the Salt River system. So there's 2 watersheds that Salt River has. The Verde system comes basically almost just south of Flagstaff, goes through Camp Verde, flows through the Verde River and comes into town. And then they have the Salt River system that starts up in the White Mountains. They're working on a project on the Verde system to raise the dam level 95 feet, which will provide an additional 100,000 acre feet of water stored behind a new dam that we can actually purchase and use for the future as supplies dwindle here. So big project there, working through that. Another project there, and we're not sure if this is a viable one yet, but there's some people looking into going to the Gulf of California, building a desalination plant to pump water back up to the Colorado River so that they can deliver it here to Phoenix. Because obviously if we go to an ocean, we have an unlimited supply at that point in time and we're not relying on rainwater at that point. So huge projects. Will it happen? If the drought continues, obviously these will become a bigger priority. The governor pledged $500 billion to one of those projects already. So they're trying to work through on how that'll happen. So big things will happen there. That's kind of my end of my presentation. We said we'd talk about, the new development to the south. Roughly 11,000 homes will be coming here to Apache Junction. And the biggest reason why those 4 square miles was sold first, and even though there's 8,000 acres around it still, is because we only have enough water supply to service those first 4 square miles. And that's really what we were looking at and what the developer worked with us on to make sure that we could service that as well as our existing customers so that we wouldn't damage anything that they would have. So we worked probably 4 years before it actually went to auction to make sure that that was a viable project with water supplies and different things that we could do down there. So a big thing here in Apache Junction, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be interesting. We've worked through several different things with them. Some unique situations where there'll be no grass in your front yards. It has to be turf, so fake grass. We're also putting a reuse system in. So again, We'll deliver potable water to people. It'll go to the sewer treatment plant. We'll train it to A+ water. We'll deliver it back down to the development to water some of their common areas for parks, for large parks down there. They actually have a couple lakes down there for amenities for it, but that'll be used from those lakes to water those big parks around those areas too, to keep it green, instead of using potable water down there. So a couple unique situations that we're working on through that project. So, any questions on water supplies?
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for coming to talk to us tonight and answer some questions. When I see these canals that's opened, and I've always wondered about the evaporation from the canal. And in addition, you hear here in town, people throwing shopping carts, bicycles, even running cars off into them. So kind of a two-part about the open canal.
So the CAP canal is open canal, and so is most of SRP's canal. So there's a lot of evaporation on them. Back in the day, they actually were dirt-lined canals. So they were losing a lot of water through the ground also. Over time, the CAP did not allow you to deliver CAP water in those dirt-lined canals. It had to be concrete-lined, but they're slowly changing that, and a lot of the other irrigation companies have to abide by that too now. So we're trying to save some of that water from going down in the ground or going up. But we do have evaporation there. Yes, there's a lot of shopping carts, there's a lot of cars, there's different things that go into the canal. There's a lot of people that manage that. CAP is the one that runs the canal, which is Central Arizona Project. They actually fly the canal twice a day with a helicopter. It goes flying by just to see what's going on out there. There's all kinds of sensors on their fences to see what's happening. So they are aware of some of that, but they're not going to stop it. As we move forward, a lot of people want to see trails along the canal and make it an amenity rather than just fenced off. So they'll be working towards that. Hopefully we keep from putting shopping carts and different things in there, but it is how it is today.
More questions about water. So, Michael, can you just tell us what's going on right now between here and the development down south, water-wise, and what we'll see over the next year or 18 months before we actually see a house go up?
I will here in a second, but we'll answer one question here. Right? She had her hand up there, Al, before.
Where was it? Where? Oh, sure.
Right.
You might have answered it and I missed it. So you said there's only enough water for the 4 square miles now down there. Where's the rest of the water going to come for the rest of the building?
That's what we're working on. That's what those big projects that we're working towards. Reuse, is that going to be an option? Is there other different supplies that we can lease?
So what if you can't make it happen? What happens to the rest of the land out there? It doesn't get developed?
It doesn't get developed at that point in time because you have to have a 100-year assured water supply from the Department of Water Resources. So we can't move forward unless we can prove that we have those supplies.
Remember, that's all state land owned, it's state trust land. They have not done anything other than that, a little more than 4 square miles, actually 6,600 acres that we annexed, that was state land. That's the only land that they have sold at this point. They have not sold any of the other 270 square miles of the area south of baseline. A lot of people, I think, have gotten a little bit confused about that. None of that is developable yet because the state hasn't done anything with it yet. And one of the dominoes for that to happen has to be water. And since water has not been identified yet for that, the state's probably not going to move.
So in that area then, it's just the 4
Just 4 square miles. It's the only thing that's being developed. That's the only thing. That's all that's been sold. Yeah, there you go. And like I said, I think we've seen some people get a little confused because people want to talk about 270 square miles when we're really only talking about 4.
And the 4 square miles is going to be 11,000 homes?
Correct.
Gotcha.
So that's why I was talking about with our partnerships with SRP. Obviously, SRP wants to see that land develop. They want to service the power, so they're a great partner of ours to see how we can get those water supplies and work through that process.
Well, that makes a lot of sense now, Al. Thank you.
And like I said, I'm glad you asked that question because I think there are some people still out there who do not realize that's what's going on.
Do you have a number that tells for industrial development versus homes as far as how much water consumption they're generally targeted for?
We do not. So that actually became a big issue here in Arizona. Mesa had a great idea. Apple came in, everybody's really happy, but it only brought, I think it was like 80 jobs because it's a data center. There's not much going on there. but the water supplies required to cool that data center were huge. So council loved that, brought them in, great. Now they had a water bottling manufacturer come in. Great again, let's get them in here. Actually, Microsoft, I believe, or Google, one of the two came in, they actually said, wait a minute. You guys are using way too much water for these data centers for how much benefit we're getting out of it. So they actually passed off, that company went out to Goodyear. So they actually went back and said, okay, if you guys want to bring in these data centers, that's great, but they need to bring the water with them at that point in time because it's using too much of the supplies that's not there. They worked through that process and had it happen. So they also looked at, okay, we're going to master plan our entire service area and say, okay, we're going to allocate so much for industrial supplies. Again, if it's above that supply we allocated for that piece of property, you have to bring that water with you now, rather than the city providing that water. You bring those supplies.
So I know that some manufacturers like Intel will do, what the water that they use for their process, it'll go through treatment and then it'll go into a non-potable, like lakes kind of development or something of that nature, watering parks and all that kind of thing. So you don't use the potable water for that type of approach. Is that something that generally you work with developers coming in with manufacturing sites or industrial type developments?
So we haven't had many of those come in, so we haven't started working through that process, but we're actually, that's what I was saying, we're working through our reuse system with the sewer district with some different things. Obviously, as we grow and different things happen like that, we're going to utilize that where we can create green areas and not use potable water. Like I was saying, the Apple plant over there, they actually use the water, I think, 8 times before they actually discharge it, before it becomes too hard for them. So the more water they can use it and recycle it, or we can use it to do other things with, the less water we have to provide for potable.
Good questions. More. Anyway, can you answer mine there, Michael? Just tell me what's going to be going on down there for the next, whatever it is going to be,
Absolutely.
year, 18 months?
So this project alone, we're currently only 4,500 service connections. Again, it's 11,000 homes, so more than doubling our system, almost tripling it at this point in time. So a large improvement's going to be happening. So the first improvement is our Superstition Area Water Plant that we just built in 2015 at 2 million gallons a day. Is going to go probably up to 10 million gallons a day within the next 5 years. From that plant, we have to run a 30-inch transmission line to a new water campus, to a tank there, that's going to go straight down to Ironwood. So there's going to be a lot of delays on Ironwood here pretty soon to get this infrastructure in the ground for this development. They're also building 3.2 million gallons of storage and a booster pump station at that site to service that 4 square miles, so it's going to be its own pressure zone down there as part of that. So you have a lot of large mains going in there. With that, we're also doing a reuse system. So at the sewer treatment plant, or reuse plant there, they'll be treating it, delivering it to a tank, and then we'll be taking it down to lakes also with another 24-inch water line going down to Ironwood. So over the next probably several years, Ironwood's going to be a rough road to be on because all the infrastructure that's going to go in for this development as it moves forward. And they didn't actually start at the easiest end where all the utilities are at the north end. They started in the southwest corner in the south half of this whole section down on Ray Road. So they have to bring all this infrastructure down to them currently to start with. So a lot of construction going on, and it comes with a hefty price tag for them.
The numbers that you use for projections that are based on current usage rates, how much of that is dependent upon the snowbird population, the dropping and the increasing in population over the course of the year? And with 11,000 homes, it's not going to be that, it's probably going to be more permanent residents. How are you taking that into account?
So we look at that, we do an average of all of our customers throughout the year. So Apache Junction is kind of unique compared to most cities. We don't have the bell curve, they called it. So in the wintertime, it all dropped off because nobody's using landscaping. Summertime, we had high demands. Well, here in Apache Junction, it stays flat because in the summertime, we have that landscaping demand, but then as soon as the winter comes, the snowbirds all show up, and it keeps that same amount of water that we have to supply to them. So we see that happening. During our design standards, we don't allow them to go by our actual, what our customers use currently today. So instead of the 95 gallons per capita per day, they actually use 160. So we're kind of planning for that because we're not sure what kind of customers we're going to have down there. Eventually, I believe that number will come down, but we use a high planning number so that we make sure that we provide that water to them and we're not getting behind or coming in short in the end.
Yeah, remember that development down south is planned for single-family homes, apartments, condos, townhomes. So you can sort of look at the, 3 per unit number, but that's not necessarily going to be exactly correct. And of course, that can change over time too. Remember, it's going to take 8 to 10 years to build out that whole development. Okay. Anybody thirsty by this point? We should have brought water for everybody tonight. That's what we should have done. All right. Mike Loggins, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. 7:35. We're doing pretty good here. How about we take a 7-minute break and come back at 7:45, and then we'll talk about sewer as the utilities night continues. You ready? I get to introduce you.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, everybody back? All right. We cap our night with, well, it's a very necessary part of the city, isn't it? And actually, along with water, has now taken on an even more important role in the evolution of the city with this development that's going on, which of course I'm sure Darren will address a little bit. But utilities obviously is one of the most important and one of the most common areas of any municipality. Almost all municipalities have some utility segment to it. The interesting part about the Apache Junction and the city of Apache Junction is water, technically a separate entity. 2/3 of the city, as Mr. Loggins mentioned, is actually serviced by Arizona Water Company, a for-profit separate company, and 1/3 of the city by the Apache Junction Water District, which is technically a separate entity within the city. It's not part of the city municipal government structure. The board of directors for the water district is the city council, but they still act separately. So if you come on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, there is a water board meeting. They all sit up there, they decide the things that happen for the water district, and then they adjourn, and then at 7, they come back as the city council for the rest of the city. So an interesting, point to make there. The gentleman who is going to present next is completely separate from the city. They have an area that does not just include the city, but actually goes outside of the city limits, and their board is a separate appointed board, except that the city council appoints the board members. So there you go. It's all connected, isn't it? With us tonight, of course, is the district manager for the Superstition Mountains Community Facilities District. That's a mouthful. Been with the district for 13 years, began as the engineer and was selected for the district manager role in 2014. Has a bachelor's degree in engineering from Arizona State University, one of the top 5 universities in the state of Arizona, and is a registered professional engineer, in the state of Arizona, and he has been an integral part of the lead up to the development of the land down south, and of course has been a major, wonderful partner on all things City of Apache Junction. So the district manager of the sewer district, Darren Anglin.
All right, thanks for having me, everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right, great. As Al mentioned, I am Darren Anglin. I work for Superstition Mountains Community Facilities District number 1. That's the only time I'm going to say that tonight. We go by SMCFD, or we also like sewer district. It's easier, it gets right to the point. So SMCFD, we go by sewer district. Sometimes when you're at Walmart or Fry's, they'll see the FD and they'll say, "Thank you for your service." You're welcome. Get a discount on my way out. Our sewer story, we were formed in 1992 by the City Council of Apache Junction to provide regional wastewater collection and treatment. We're a special purpose district, just like Mike Loggins is with the Water District. And we're governed by a volunteer board of directors, as Al mentioned. They're appointed by council. We have a 5-member board. They're volunteers, and they serve 6-year staggered terms. A couple facts and figures. We have 7,300 customers, 30 employees, an annual budget of $8.8 million. And one thing that's a little different right now for us, we have a debt still of $8.6 million. When we were formed and created, we didn't have the money or wherewithal to build a sewer plant and a system, so we took out some bonds, and we've been paying those back since 1995. Now our annual debt payment is $2.7 million, and that will be retired in the year 2025. So we're very excited about that. Just in time to get more debt, I'm sure. But it's nice to almost have that done. We did refinance the debt in 2013 and 2017, saved a lot of money on interest, and that was really exciting. And then we also shortened the term a little bit as well. So there you can see our debt payment's $2.7 million out of our annual budget. You know, it's about 30%. It's a pretty good chunk of our budget. So we're looking forward to retiring that, like I said, in 2025. So wastewater collection, a few years ago, we posted a job for a wastewater collection technician. We had like 300 applicants, but there was a different type of collection they were looking at. So now we put like sewer collection, and sometimes that doesn't get it. But anyway, wastewater collection is just the sewer system in the streets. It's the manholes and the pipes that go from your house all the way down to our treatment plant on Ironwood and Guadalupe. So we have 116 miles of pipe from 6 inches to 36 inches is our biggest. It disappeared. No, there it is. And we have about 2,000 manholes. There we go. Throughout the city. And there's a map. The green lines and dots are the sewer system. We are lucky, even though it fights against Mr. Weaver and the washes, the good thing for us is we're next to the mountain. Everything slopes from the northeast down to the southwest. We love gravity sewer. It's very economical, and it just flows downhill. And we collect everything at the southwest corner of the city on Delaware and Baseline. From there, we have a pump station that goes to our treatment plant. All right, here's some collection crew equipment. This is a camera van. If you see that down the street, they are looking at dirty pictures in that camera van. We put the camera in the sewer pipe, and they go up the distance. They look for cracks. They look for grease, blockages, anything that should not be in there. Roots, we get a lot of roots. That's one of our biggest obstacles in the city. And that is the cleaning machine. It uses high pressure water to jet the system, and then we suck out everything at the end of it, bring it back to the plant. All right, it's my favorite part, public service announcement. I get to do it every time I do a presentation. The sewer is not a toilet. The toilet is not a trash can. So please don't flush down any of these things in your system. I'm amazed sometimes when I'll talk to people like Q-tips or cotton balls. They're like, really? I'm like, yes, don't do that. So put it in the garbage. The last one is a new one we just added. We were cleaning out a filter 2 days ago, and we found tons and tons of little rubber bands, and they were from braces. So people want to get their braces, and they put it in the toilet. Anyway, so we're going to go to all the orthodontists in the city and say, hey, tell your patients not to do that. And I have 2 boys with braces, and I'm going to tell them, you better not be doing that. It was a lot. All right, our treatment facility, that's what it looked like that's what it looks like a few years ago. Towards the top middle, those 2 dark basins right there, those are our aeration basins. There's our administration buildings. And these down here are recharge basins. Everything to the right, that is all sludge processing. So in 1992, we were formed. In 1996, we started operating the plant. And at that time, we were receiving about 140,000 gallons in flow per day. We had just started, so now we're about 1.5 million gallons per day. Plant's rated for 2 million gallons. And in 2005, we started doing recharge. That's when we constructed these basins. So we took the water that we cleaned and treated and put it back into the aquifer for future generations to use. We take the solids and dry them out right here on the eastern side, and when they're dry, they go back to the landfill. Something we've just added is a filter, a tertiary filter, and that will help us produce with reclaimed water. We're going to partner with Mike and the Water District, and they're going to take that water and deliver it back, like he mentioned, to the new developer to use it on landscaped areas. All right, here's the funnest part. The wastewater treatment process, what we do. Everything at the treatment process is like a big bacteria farm. We ourselves don't do anything special, but we provide a right environment for bacteria to grow. As they grow, they eat the wastewater, the sewage, and then they grow some more. So by themselves just growing through the life cycle, they're treating the wastewater. Here's a picture, it's an actual picture of raw sewage. We used to bring in bottles and do a little show and tell, but a few years ago one of them leaked and we didn't do that anymore. But at the beginning of the plant, we have some screens that take out all the big things and the small things that we don't want. And in the middle, the heart of the plant is the aeration basins. So all we do is we add air to the water. We have big old blowers, 3 100 horsepower blowers. They inject air into the system. And you can see from the aeration basin to the raw sewage, there's a vast difference between those two right there. The one in the middle kind of looks like dirt water to me, dirty water. And when you're out there at the basin, if the process is running right, it kind of smells like earth because we grow a lot of earth bacteria that treat our system. So at the end of the process, when we're done with the bugs, we'll let them settle out and we'll discharge those as sludge. And then the water will take off the top and we'll disinfect it with liquid chlorine. That's an actual picture of our discharge. It's really good water. And then from there it goes down to the aquifer. We recharge it. A couple fun facts. Since our 1996, when we started, we've treated over 11 billion gallons of sewage, which is pretty impressive. And we've recharged since 2005 about half of that, about 5 billion gallons of water back into the aquifer. We have an agreement with the water district. We recharge those, we get credits from the state, and then we sell them back to the water district for their system. Environmental permits were heavily regulated. We have permits from ADEQ. We have a few with them. We have a permit with Pinal County for air quality, and then also with the Department of Water Resources, we have a couple there for our recharge. Future growth, as everyone's mentioned, the part in the yellow right there is what we're looking to add to our service area. We used to stop at the city boundaries, which was Elliott, and as the city annexed south, we also moved to annex as well. In the wastewater world, it's our 208 plan. It's based on the Clean Water Act. Anyway, that is going through the process right now and is set to be approved by the EPA, hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days. And then we'll be serving that area and match the city boundaries. We are looking for 11,000 homes. And a little something you can see right here, the red box, you can see up there, that's where our treatment plant's located. So they're actually south of the treatment plant. So unfortunately, everything from Elliott South is going to gravity feed down to a pump station. We'll collect it, and then we're going to have to pump it back up to our treatment facility. We love to give tours. If you guys have any youth groups or yourself want to come out, we've got some life vests. We can get on that and just go to town if you want. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, any questions?
Do you have to make an appointment for a tour? Or
Yes, please do. I'll give you my card and we'll set up a time. You can come out, take a tour. Don't come in the summertime. That's the worst.
That's right.
Any questions? I know they saved me for last, the best for last.
Everybody's got to have some sewer questions.
No? All right.
Come on now. Okay, thank you, Natalie. You're saving us here. Okay, Cheryl's going to go first.
Basically, you clean the dirty water and give it back to us to drink.
That's right. Well, someday to drink, yes.
Not yet,
Not yet.
but it's coming.
Just kind of a general question. So can you tell via what household put those rubber bands in or who does stuff so that if there's damage, does it go back to the homeowner or who owns the pipe between the house and the street?
A lot of good questions there. So sometimes we can tell which homeowner is discharging. Something like grease or rags will usually stay in the line. And when we go to camera the line, we can we can see what's going on, and sometimes we'll send a nice reminder out to the homeowner, say, hey, we noticed a lot of grease in your line, please put it in a can and throw it away. But for the rubber bands, we just won't know. Sometimes with motor oil or things like that, we can follow the trail up the system. So if we get a complaint or if we notice it downstream, they'll start tracking upstream to where we find and that one we can usually find pretty good. The other question, from the house to the street is owned by the homeowner. Once it's at our main line in the street, then we take care of it past that. So sometimes it's a misconception where someone will have a plug in their system and they'll call our after hours person, and the after hours person will respond and they'll open the manholes in the street and say, hey, we're not overflowing, we're good. You need to call a plumber. So just be aware of that. If you're backing up, it's most likely somewhere in your system or in your house it's getting plugged. Not always, but most of the time. Did I answer your questions? Okay.
Do we have any idea how many people are still on septic or some percentage?
Great question. When we were started, connection to sewer was voluntary, so a lot of people chose not to connect. And if you have your septic and it's working fine, stay on septic, that's fine. When you're ready, you can connect. Any new development, like the new subdivisions you see going up, those all have to connect to sewer. So we like to think we're about half of the city, but we're probably maybe just under that, because there's portions up, where are we at? Right here. On the eastern side up here, we can't serve that easily. It's very low density, and it's very hilly, so we probably won't serve that for a long, long time.
Okay, more questions, hold on.
So what's the cost for the homeowner to go from their house out to the septic in the street?
Great question. Gonna softball that one back to you and say, it depends. Some houses, so our sewer's either in the street or on the sides. If it's on your side of the street, like in the dirt shoulder, it's a few $1,000s to get it to your house to do the construction, like 3,000. And then, but we do also have a permit, which is roughly 4,000 to buy capacity into the system, and we use that to help pay off our debt. If it's across the street, then it's going to cost double or triple that, because you have to dig up the street, do traffic control and asphalt. So I wish everyone could have gotten connected in 1994, because I look at the construction costs back then. I know they were high back then, but now I'm like, really, $200 to put a tap in for someone? Like, we can't even do traffic control for that much money. So and the more time goes on, the more expensive it gets.
How long does the tour take?
It's like half hour to 45 minutes.
You gotta row in that boat?
No. So that is a picture. It's a cheating. We have a pontoon now. That boat was a little sketchy because when the crews were in it and someone was trying to work on the floating air lines, the person would have to counterbalance them on the other side of the boat so it wouldn't tip over. But now we got the pontoon, it's super stable and safe. And some of the operators would say, hey, look, if I fall in, just let me go. I don't want to come back after that. So
Kind of smelly.
it can get smelly sometimes, yeah.
That's why you say don't come in the summer.
Don't come in the summer, and it's hot.
Other questions?
Is it harmful for your health to work there?
Okay, so yes, it is, but only in confined spaces. So we have a robust safety program. Anytime we have to go into a manhole or somewhere in a pit, we have to do forced air, we have air samplers, and then we have a whole permit we have to fill out. So we try not to do that because it's extremely hazardous. The majority of our plant is open air, so we don't really have a problem, especially on a windy day, you don't even notice it. But in some areas, we do have to have those monitors, and that's the dangerous part. It's the hydrogen sulfide. You can't smell it, or it deadens your senses, your smell, and then you just pass out. But thankfully, we've been okay for that.
More?
Now, everyone wants to go to bed. It's like 8.
I guess so, everybody, it's early. Well, we are not done yet, because I have a few more things to do. But ladies and gentlemen, Darren Anglin from the
Thank you.
Sewer District.
board members that I think are getting reappointed in the fall, if anyone wants to join the board, then we might have an opening. During that.
Thanks, Sue.
Anyone else?
It occurred to me as we were talking this week, and I do want to cover a couple things having to do with city council meetings and planning and zoning meetings, that I assumed everybody knows all about the city website, but maybe not everybody does. Also may not realize that the domain for the city website has changed in the last year. It used to be ajcity.net. I don't know if you remember that. It's now apachejunctionaz.gov. That's the convention that has been pretty much accepted by most municipal governments throughout the state of Arizona. It is a convention that's been used in other places as well, but you can almost just about put in any cityaz.gov and get that city's website. Not quite everybody, but it's getting there. So mesaaz.gov and tempeaz.gov are those respective cities' websites. I don't know if Queen Creek was queencreek.org for the longest time. I don't know if it's changed. But ours has. It's apachejunctionaz.gov. And if you're not familiar with it by this point, I would encourage you to go out and explore a little bit so you can see what the website has, because just about everything of city importance resides somewhere on here. It's got a very good search engine as well. You can find lots and lots of stuff. I like reminding everybody that this is the first place to start if you're looking for anything right off the bat. My top stories, if you will, my news stories are right here on the homepage. Scroll down a little bit, tells you all kinds of cool stuff that's going on. You keep going, you got all the parks programs and calendar of events and things that are going on in the city, and that's important too. And that leads me again to sort of the other requirement, if you will, for CLI. To complete CLI, in addition to at least attending 7 of the 8 sessions, I ask all of our students to attend at least one city council meeting and one planning and zoning meeting. So you understand that the city council, I think we all covered this at the beginning, but we'll sort of refresh memories, meets on the first Tuesday of every month and the third Tuesday of every month. Now, they also have work sessions on the Mondays prior to those, but they don't always happen because there's not always items to discuss. Work sessions are discussion meetings. They're a little more informal. The regular council meetings on Tuesdays are ones in which they vote on particular issues, they discuss particular issues, and of course that's where public hearings happen. So when we get to budget time that you learned last time, those are happening on Tuesdays, because those are public hearings where members of the public can come in and weigh in on those particular items. And not every item is a public hearing, but there almost always is at least one on the agenda of a regular council meeting. Also at the end of, or towards the end of each council meeting, is what we call to the public. This is a general standard item that is done throughout government. It is not required by anyone. A lot of people say, you have to allow us to speak. No, there is not anything written in any state law or otherwise that says we have to allow everybody to speak. But most jurisdictions do allow for, in this case, 3 minutes at the end of every meeting for an individual to come up and address some issue for the city council. The only requirement from our point is that because of the state open meeting law, the city council is not allowed to really respond to it. They can address or direct a city staffer to follow up on an item, but they cannot directly answer that particular question because, of course, it's not part of that agenda. But that doesn't stop you from coming up for 3 minutes and talking about something that is important to you in regards to city government. So every city council meeting that is on the first and third Tuesdays of every month, unless it gets canceled, and they are canceled very rarely, I'll be real honest, maybe around the holidays, and then maybe a meeting or two during the summer, depending on what's going on. You will find the city council meeting in this room at 7 o'clock on those Tuesdays, sitting right behind me and taking on city business. And then, like I said, the work sessions are on the Mondays before. And I'm careful not to say the first Monday, because last week we had our first meeting of March on March 1st, but we had a work session on February 28th. So I have to be a little bit careful the way I describe that. But if you have not been to a city council meeting, I really encourage you to come if you can in person, or at least tune in. Again, it's the same thing. You can watch it all online. If you go to the city website and you type in live stream, you can get what we used to call Channel 11, the government channel on the old cable systems. All city governments still have what essentially is a cable access channel that it can broadcast to its citizens, and we still do that through MediaCom and the cable systems in the city. The satellite systems do not have that requirement, so we're unfortunately not able to broadcast on those, but we now stream our channel through the city website. So you can always watch council meetings that way, like I said, 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. So like I said, I encourage everyone to make sure they come to a city council meeting this Tuesday. There is no work session on Monday. There is a regular council meeting on Tuesday. They will meet as the water board, as I said, at 6 o'clock, and then we'll come back at 7 o'clock and do the regular city council meeting. There is only a couple of items on this week's agenda, so it's actually should be a short meeting. But one of the things they will discuss, and everyone should be aware of, at least, because this is going to be part of the talk of the city, certainly for the next couple of months, if not for the rest of the year, and that is the replacement of council members. If you are paying attention, one of our council members recently resigned at the previous meeting to run for state office, and so there will be a process to replace that council member. That will be discussed on Tuesday at the city council meeting. And going forward to see what else happens. So that is, in and of itself, an interesting dynamic facing us as the city. The other meeting that I always ask folks to try to attend is the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission meets on the other Tuesdays, usually the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month, opposite the council, also in this room, also at 7 p.m. They have canceled their last couple meetings. Now, if you remember, back to the second session we had with our Development Services Director, he was in the process of retiring. So there's some transition going on right now within that department, but they should be back up and running because they, I'm sure, have a number of issues, not just related to the development down south, but regular issues that the Planning and Zoning Commission needs to address. So you should start seeing those coming back going forward. So the next scheduled meeting would be on March the 22nd. Does that sound right? That would be the following Tuesday. And so we will keep everyone apprised if there is a meeting that night. Again, you can come and watch or watch online and then just kind of watch the schedule and we'll go forward. Like I said, we'd like to try to get everybody to see at least one city council and one P&C meeting. There are, of course, other board and commissions meetings, and I also encourage you to look at those schedules because if you have interest in one of those boards, it would be good for you to watch and see what's going on. Cheryl, you had a question? Yes, there is. 6:30, correct? So 6:30 tomorrow in this room, the library board meets, of which Ms. Hall there is a member. And so that's a good way to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the library and what they're facing and maybe plans for future programs and whatnot in the library. There's also a parks board. There is a board of adjustment that meets very infrequently. That is sort of an appeals board related to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So there are several out there, and you can go to the city website and put in boards, and you will tell you all the different boards and commissions that the city has. It also shows you how to apply to be a board member of one of those boards or commissions. And in the fall, we will open up the application process as we would normally do, and take applications for people wanting to be on our boards and commissions, and then schedule an interview in a work session in front of the city council on a Monday night, and then you would be appointed on the Tuesday night following at a regular council meeting. Remember that for the most part, a city board requires a residency within the city limits of Apache Junction. That is, pretty standard. However, there are a couple. The sewer board, a very good example, as Mr. Anglin was mentioning. The sewer board, because it is covers an area outside the city limits, you do not have to be a member, a resident of the city of Apache Junction within the proper city limits. You can be in the area and still do that. The Arts Commission, the new Arts Commission, that's just a couple of years old, also has residents and non-residents on its panel. So you can kind of hear and see both of those. So you can see all of that. It also shows you the schedule on there and the different boards that you can see and which exist in the city, and you can attend to their meetings or have some interest and you want to hear a little bit more about it, possibly to apply in the fall. Please let me know, because I will make sure to get you information on that too. Okay, that's wanted to want to make sure that everybody knew. Like I said, I'm going to send you all a note asking for your polo shirt size, assuming you're all going to make it to the last 3 sessions. Are we not? I'm trying to remember. In 2 weeks, when we come back together, we will talk law and order. Want to guess? Any idea? Hopefully the police chief, we have a new police chief. Hopefully he will be able to make it to that night. But we will hear from police. We will hear from Paws and Claws, which falls under police. And I believe we will hear from the city court. I think the city attorney comes a little bit later in the year, but we will hear a little bit about that. And then, like I said, we'll also hear a little bit about revenue development from Fox Young, who could not join us the last time, but he should be able to join us on the 23rd. Okay, questions? Jeff? Yes, the sewer board doesn't even meet here. They meet over at the sewer district office, which is, again, also off of Baseline and Ironwood, and they have a different schedule altogether. I'd have to go and look to see. They do not post it on the city. They have their own site, because they are completely separate. So I will send around all of these addresses as well as the sewer district URL, so you can take a look at those too. And then, like I said, the water board is usually the second council meeting night of each month. So in this case, this Tuesday, they meet at 6 o'clock before a regular council meeting. That's when the water board meets. Yeah?
The last 2 meetings in April, they bumped up 3rd week, and then you were on vacation or something going on?
In April?
Yeah.
I haven't.
6th and 20th, it's 13th and 27th.
Yeah, so I have to look and see, and like I said, the city council meetings are pretty much set in stone. The other board and commission meetings are dependent on the items needed to be addressed, if there isn't any, but. Oh, our class, which should be the 23rd. Oh, yes, there is, because of the 3-week break in between city council meetings, you're gonna get a 3-week break as well. So that's why it's April 6th and April 20th or whatever it might be. There you go. No, I think it's the, you know what, no, it's the 13th and 27th. Yeah, you're right. It's because you do get a 3-week break after the next session. And then we'll go to the 27th. And then after that, on May 5th, I believe, would be the next council meeting, either the 5th or the 19th. I will invite you all back for a city council meeting so you can have graduation, where we award certificates and the shirts, and we take pictures with the mayor and have a little celebration that night. That'll probably be either May 5th or May 19th, so after the class is completed. Questions? Everybody wants to get home. Just while we're sitting here, gas prices have gone up 10 cents. I'm kidding. We're still working on it, right? 25 cents exactly. All right, everybody have a very good night. We will see you in 2 weeks. Please, as always, drive home safely.